Hi, everybody. We are back with another installment in our incredible Symposium series on David Lynch, one of the most incredible artists and directors of all time, who is no longer with us. And we'll be bringing you 10 feature films symposiums. So we're going to talk about all of his work in depth. So please join us in this part and like and subscribe if you'd like.
Like and subscribe, everyone. You'll totally enjoy it.
To forget my world is ending. I have to live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Deep Images. We are in the midst of a wonderful virtual wake of sorts for the sadly recently deceased David Lynch, who one of our crew called the Godfather of all cinephiles. And basically, we're just going through his entire oeuvre and just giving our thoughts, what they mean to us when we first saw him, how they impressed us, how they had our own second viewing, and just all their hidden meanings and layers. So I have C.F. Roberts with me as co-host, Justin Cotton with me as co-host, live from Australia, and Briggie Williams, my incredible panelist, and I'm Henry Covert, and we're going to talk about Mulholland Drive from 2001, which kind of put Lynch back on the map because he was actually nominated for Oscar again for Best Director. Totally snubbed as usual, but it launched the career of Naomi Watts. We're gonna go around and talk about what these nice folks think about it. I will go with Chuck first on this roulette.
Okay, well, to just set the scene,
Yeah.
tell you a
City.
little bit of what this is about. So in 2000, David Lynch was kind of coming back off a big triumph with a straight story, and he had some trouble with Lost Highway. He had some trouble with that.
Hmm.
A lot of people kind of rejected it, didn't accept, particularly a lot of people who even liked his previous stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people thought it was mainstream. People thought it was too sexy, and I'm weird
Yeah.
too. But I was just like, why are they getting so squeamish about this?
Well, yeah, a lot of people kind of walked away. I think a friend of mine said something like, I think David Lynch was supposed to be one of those filmmakers I was supposed to like, but somehow I never connected. And
I
that
just
was
tie
kind
those people up in a room and like turn on 20 television sets all in Cinemax to watch the erotic
of,
thrillers from the 90s over on an endless
yeah.
loop just for punishment for calling out Lynch for homaging in them.
Or
Yeah.
what
the
they used to call it Skinemax, actually, because it was
Cinemax.
like,
Skinamax,
Hell
yes.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, Chuck. So yes,
But anyway, so
trajectory of Mr. L.
for those of you who are maybe afraid with the triumph of the straight story that Mr. Lynch was going to just kind of go down the merry way of doing family friendly straight stories and linear narratives forever. Well, he came back with a beast. I said back when, again, we go back to when we did Blue Velvet, that was my personal favorite film of his. But there was one movie I consider his masterpiece, and that is Mulholland Drive.
Oh wow, cool. Cool.
And just to give you an idea, this was the bare bones of this were basically a failed TV pilot.
Hmm.
This was supposed to be a series. I think a lot of it was filmed, and then after wasn't picked up by the studio, so that was just kind of lying around dead. But then he picked it up and decided to retool it as a film. Now, start the movie off, you get this very abstract scene of a jitterbug contest, and you see just this weird green screen layover layer of a bunch of people dancing. It's actually, I think, two dance couples dancing in repeated shots.
Yeah, they're playing some
And
kind
from
of
there,
slight bebop.
yeah, and then at the end of that, you see this one pretty girl and these two senior citizens come into the limelight, and that is the Naomi Watts character, and I guess what would either be folks who were there at the time, or they were her grandparents, depending on which version of the story you want to follow.
Yeah.
But the next thing you see is a head, or just the POV of a head hitting a pillow. And then it goes into the sign, the street sign for Mulholland Drive.
Mm.
And a brunette lady in a limo is riding this limo down Mulholland Drive. It stops. And she's like, "What's this? We don't stop here." The limo driver turns around, pulls a gun on her, and says, "A surprise." And they pull her out of the car and are obviously going to kill her. And that is when a bunch of joyriding teens come careening around the corner, hit the car, and destroy it. You know, I think there's a big mess. A lot of people die. I think the hitman limo driver also dies. The brunette lady gets up out of the wreckage and, you know, she got a head wound, and she staggers off into the Hollywood night, you know, not really looking very out of sorts. And this scene will actually pop up later in the story, and it plays out almost the same. And if you look at Lynch's series of clues, he says a limo, you know, or just a car accident is where something terrible happens.
Mm.
You know, pay attention to the terrible things that happen. And that car crash happens twice, but it's not really a car crash both times. One's a metaphorical car crash, but
Okay.
they play out very much the same. And you'll see a lot of this in the movie because a lot of scenes and a lot of characters kind of mirror each other. And
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of mirror symbology throughout the whole film.
Doppelgangers is a big thing.
Doppelgangers, yes. And you meet the blonde character from the beginning. It's Betty, played by Naomi Watts, and she's a starry-eyed person who comes in to stay at a place that's owned by her Aunt Ruth. Stay at this little condo, and she's all, you know, she's won her jitterbug contest, and she's going to become a star. And these two old people, kind of who she arrives in the airport with, kind of pat her on the back. And they tell her, "We'll be watching for you on the big screen." And
So sweet.
yes, it's so sweet and, I don't know, idealized. And so she goes to this place that is owned by her Aunt Ruth, who is in absentia. She goes there and is met by the landlady, who is her name is Coco. She's played by Ann Miller, great star of the Golden Age.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And is brought into Aunt Ruth's place, and she finds this brunette woman who is in there with her, is in there hiding out, and she asks her who she is, and the woman kind of looks around and sees a poster of Gilda starring Rita Hayworth, and says, "My name's Rita." Later, she breaks down and confesses, "I don't know my name. I can't remember anything."
Oh.
But the entire thing devolves around Betty's attempts to land an acting job and become a star, but also they kind of almost fall into a Nancy Drew sort of caper where they're trying to solve the mystery of Rita's identity. And a stack of money turns up in her bag, and there are all these mysterious shenanigans, you know, just the Hollywood studios, where there's a director named Adam Kesher, played by Justin Theroux, and he's trying to make this movie. The money men, who seem mob connected, are trying to take hold of the movie. They show him this portrait of this headshot of a girl who's, you know, just kind of generically pretty blonde. They say, "This is Camilla Rhodes." When you see her, you say, "This is the girl." and he refuses, and that begins a whole big disastrous subplot for him. And all these plots kind of congeal, and there are monsters behind dumpsters, and there are strange, mysterious, cryptic cowboys who pop up. And
the dumpster thing is really intense. That's my face.
The dumpster thing it's kind of key to the whole thing.
Scared me to death
the
first time I saw it. I'm not gonna lie.
Because the guy who sees the dumpster monster is a guy named Dan, and it's important that his name is Dan. Mm-hmm. But he's telling a friend of his in Winky's Diner, which pops up again and again, mirror scenes, like I say. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how he keeps having this awful dream about a man behind the diner. Mm-hmm. And he says, if I ever saw the face of that man in real life, I'm afraid I'd die. And, his friend says, why are we here? Why did you bring me here? And he says, to help me get rid of this awful feeling. Mm. And so he brings the guy who was terrified down to the dumpster. They're walking down by the dumpster, and then a horrific face does appear from behind the dumpster, and Dan falls down and a dead faint, maybe dies, but like I said, it's important that his name is Dan, and that does come back later on in the story. What I'm going to tell the viewer is there are a lot of mysteries wrapped into Rita's identity, and she finds this blue key, and later on this blue box emerges that seems to fit the blue key. And I'm going to say is 2/3 of the way through the movie, they open that box. And when they open that box, fair warning, crowd, the entire movie flips upside down. No one is who you thought they were. Nothing is what you thought it was. And the entire first 2/3 of the movie have been nothing but a giant setup. And gang, it's all yours.
Well, that gives you the major thing that people usually discuss about the movie. The obvious one is which reality is real, and what does it rest upon? I mean, are they two alternate realities with same people in alternate lives, or is the first part just an illusion conjured up by Naomi Watts' naive character? Though that wouldn't explain the Rita.
It's Naomi Watts' bitter character, bitter, jaded.
That's the reality, though. Her bitter character.
Yes, crumbling character who whose name is Diane. Sounds an awful lot like Dan.
Yeah, and they kind of name dropped that when during all that intrigue earlier in the movie.
Yep. So
there is two realities.
Later on, when everything flips upside down, there is a Camilla Rhodes and there is a Diane Selwyn, but they're not who you thought they were.
Yeah, I found a lot of those scenes, those little vignettes in the beginning, they're very disjointed.
Yeah.
To me, they just did not seem to link up. You're trying to figure out like what is going on, why are these people doing this? What is the symbolism? And he focuses in on this ashtray that's on the side of the. You know what I'm talking about, right? And you're trying to figure out what this is, and like you just said,
the ashtray under the lamp. Yeah.
Yes, under the lamp, exactly.
Lamp is an important symbol for Lynch in his later movie.
Yeah.
Especially
it's a while since I watched it. So Diane Selwyn turned out to be the brunette Rita, or was it turned out to be Betty?
Betty.
Diane Selwyn.
Betty is Diane Selwyn.
Okay,
and,
so I had it wrong. Yeah. Okay.
Rita is Camilla Rose.
Camilla Rose. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
She's the person they're looking for.
Yeah.
She doesn't remember them. So yeah, I think most people want to know what's real and who's real, and so the under reality, I guess, is the second one.
What was the point of having Billy Ray Cyrus in the film? That short cameo, just for the sake of having a strange cameo, perhaps.
Well, no,
he was in.
I think it was just for the sake of having.
Yeah, that he's very careful about casting. You'll notice that's why. I mean, as one way he gets funding. I mean, to be honest, you pack the movie with names, even if they're in like teeny little roles. But yeah, Billy Ray Cyrus, that was totally random. But Chris Isaac was a musician. I mean,
Mm.
he's worked with untrained actors. Richard Farnsworth was an untrained actor. He was a stuntman. So yeah, it was funny. I thought it was funny because it does bring the element like who the hell is Adam Kesh involved with, and
Mm.
the whole hijinks of Adam Kesh. I like Justin Theroux's physical comedy. I like
Hmm.
his weird facial expressions, and I'm a little partial to him because he's a short guy with a receding hairline and wears all black. I kind of relate to all that, but
Can't beat that.
he does some funny shit in this movie and in Inland Empire, and
Uh,
but it seems like he keeps getting screwed over and he just doesn't care. And when he dumps the pink paint all over that lady's stuff, that's out of control. That is out of control, man.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I loved
He
it.
just kind of turns into a punching bag for a while.
Yeah, he's like this hapless dude who's like, "Why am I
Yeah.
broke? Why am I broke? What's going on? Where's my money? Wait, hey, wait, where's my money? What's going on? Who are you? The cowboy? Hey, partner, you gonna get ready?" Like, why is
Yeah.
he making fun of the cowboy? I mean, he does it so deadpan, and I guess a lot of
Yeah.
people would do that in Hollywood. Would be like, "Who's this
Yeah.
guy?
What do you do with this situation? That's one weird situation.
Is he gonna ride Trigger down to the range and scare up some buffalo?"
He's going to scare some buffalo, maybe. You ask him, yeah, this is a buggy. You know,
So tell us about the
so,
cowboy.
who's right? Oh, the cowboy is just one of those weird Hollywood figures. He's almost
Yeah.
a messenger. They
Yeah.
bring him. They say go to meet the cowboy. And Adam has been through the grinder at this point. Yeah, he's just distraught, and there's nothing left of him. And he has no career, no nothing. They say, you want the picture back? Here's what you get. The cowboy tells him, this is what you're going to do. And he really calls him out on his shit and brings him back to earth. But he says, this is what you're going to do. You remember that picture they showed you? When she auditions, you're going to point to her and you're going to say, this is the girl.
Right. Okay. Yes.
And there are a lot of mirror
Yeah.
scenes in here with this is the
Yeah.
girl.
I watched
that
this the other day
continues to
too.
pop up.
Yeah. The cowboy
And
is urging him toward his destiny.
yeah, and he's saying,
He has a lot of character.
you go make good with the system. And he's saying, you're going to see me one more time if you do good. You're going to see me two more times if you do bad. Guess how many times we see him?
No, two. I'm trying to find the name.
Yes, two.
I'm trying to find the name for this actor. I think whoever maintains this page on Wikipedia is freaking high.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, here he is. Monty Montgomery as the cowboy.
I kind of have this theory. I kind of have a theory with a couple of kind of parallel theories with Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive. Is I think they're similar stories in structure and in theme, but they are parallel stories. One is the male version of the story, the other is the female version of the story.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Of course, my other thing is Lost Highway is maybe the pencil sketch, whereas the fully realized piece of art is Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think
I see
one reason
definite similarities.
I heard that at some stage in his thinking, or maybe what the impression he gave somebody, he was working with a producer or actor, but at some point someone was under the impression that this was going to be a continuation of Twin Peaks. Like the character that Laura Herring plays at one point was supposed to be Audrey Horne, played by Sherilyn Fenn again as the star of this new TV series. That idea just kind of went out the window pretty quick, though. Her and Lynch have had a contentious thing, and I really don't know a lot about it anymore. But
Sherilyn Fenn.
Yeah, she wasn't going to come back to the return, and then he just pardon the pun, he shoehorns Audrey Horne into like the last two episodes and gives her own little homage. But
it gets very weird.
I mean, she's like another key character. I mean, David Lynch can develop key characters off camera. Because his scripts are very literary and well written. Michael Weldon. No, I'm kidding. So, what was your other point, Chuck, about these two movies?
Yeah, calling you out, Weldon. But no, but there are a lot of threads throughout this entire movie that are very much kind of like fuck yous to Hollywood.
Mhm.
And just he was not he loves the glory and the myth of old Hollywood, but he does not did not love the business of Hollywood.
Yeah, he has no
And
illusions about what it is
he
really.
found it absolutely dirty. He found he disliked the casting couch and whatnot. And there's a lot of references to that. And in the what is it that how does Camilla Rhodes end up really succeeding? Basically a casting couch babe.
Mm-hmm.
But there are weird little parallels. Speaking of, and here's another one for your Gordon Cole.
Mm-hmm.
There is a scene where you see this old car parked by the curb, and it is Norma Desmond's car. It is the actual car
Oh, really?
from
Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard.
Of course, Sunset Boulevard takes place in his reality.
Yeah.
Great movie. If y'all haven't seen it, but if you have,
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you what really threw me off about this movie, because I had not watched a David Lynch movie in a while when I saw this, and I kind of ignored it in the theater, but I heard it was getting all this mainstream acclaim, and that made me feel weird. So like, is Lynch sold out? And then I watched it. I'm like, no, it just kind of happens that way. Occasionally, I got an accident. Someone's rewarded for doing something good.
Yeah.
But
Strangely enough.
yes, and but this old friend of mine, Art Poole, who is no longer with us, he passed last year at the age of 80. He and I used to watch movies together a good bit in ritzy part of Charlotte. His wife worked for Microsoft or something, the bank or something. Sorry, Art's wife. I can't even remember your name. So, but she was never home when we were watching movies. So he got me into like some Woody Allen movies that I hadn't seen, and like Bound by the Wachowski brothers or sisters. And that's still the only movie there's that I care for, by the way. And actually, it's debuting on Criterion very soon. Bound with
Oh wow.
those chicks, Gina Gershon and the other chick. LGBT representation really strong on that one. So he showed me Mulholland Drive. So of course he was really into the two women, or my friend. He was really into them kissing and a little bit of breast showing. He was really into that. He was just this brilliant, erudite, retired professor, but he really was kind of like a I don't know how to describe him. But he had an eye for the lady. So he as the movie went on, I think he's like, well, there's some harsh parts I don't like, and because Art also was squeamish about violence. So if the movie had sex or just talking, it was there, maybe a little action. But as soon as it had like blood and gore, he was like checked out. He wouldn't watch the movie ever again. I mean, he gave me a few DVDs like that. He gave me Bound because it had one scene where Joe Pantoliano, the villain, either hurts somebody or gets hurt, and it's pretty bloody. And it's just that brief thing, and he's like, "This is too much for me. I got to give this away to you, man." So we're talking about Mulholland Drive, and what tripped me out was the Hitman guy.
Oh, the world's worst hitman, who turns out to be a pretty good hitman.
That scene is like, that whole Murphy's Law, and every one thing happens and another bad thing happens, and
Yeah.
chain of circumstance, or I think a Rube Goldberg drawing of a little thing that goes down a slide, and if it hits the water this way, it's going to make an alarm go off. And every time it exactly does what they wanted it to do. Dave Goldberg. But this one, it's like everything goes wrong, but he still ends up killing people.
Yeah. Well, by the end, he becomes very effective. In the end, when he pops back, he's very effective at one particular assassination.
Yeah.
I think my favorite scene in the film was the club called Silencio. Very sort of a very Lynchian type sort of club, I have to say. But there's
kind of like the big scene where everything flips upside down.
Yeah, and I think it's Rebecca Del Rio did this version of Robinson's Crying, but in Spanish, which I thought was, while the two women are watching from the audience, I thought that was a good scene. Yeah, that was quite a sort of moving type scene, actually. So the use of music's pretty good in this film, like a lot of David Lynch films.
His music's
Yeah.
always really great. I mean, usually either he writes it or Badalamenti writes it, or he and or selects pieces of music very well. Um, yeah, the scenes where the action stops and there's a woman singing, that was my first exposure to David Lynch. When I walked into the little bedroom, my mom was watching, I mean, living room. She's watching, I'm watching that weird Twin Peaks. I figured out who the killer is. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And they cut in between Leland killing Maddie, who we haven't discussed yet, but Maddie is Laura Palmer's lookalike first cousin. Kind of a riff that
Yeah.
the David Patty Duke show had, that disconceit and other shows, Idget and stuff like that. I never had any cousins that looked exactly like me that I'm aware of. So he kills Maddie. So and cut this with the woman singing is Julie Cruz. She's really singing. It's her
Mhm.
music that she wrote for
Yeah.
David Lynch. She's her music in several of his things. Her big song, I think Questions in a World of Blue is in Firewalk with Me. Is that correct?
Might be.
Questions in a World of Blue.
It is. Yeah. It is in that film. Yeah.
And he wrote a similar piece. Lynch himself wrote a similar piece. I forgot what it's called. He got his next muse, Crystal Bell, to sing it, and it's this moaning, plaintive woman singing in Inland Empire. It only occurs twice. It's kind of like the theme for the Lost Girl, the character called the Lost Girl,
Mhm.
who's the Polish girl
Yeah.
who, under all the layers, is actually the real character.
Yeah.
We'll get to that another time. Um, but in the return, he had music every week, a different performer, and some of those scenes are magical. What I was gonna say about the scene with Leland and intercuts to Julie Cruz, and Dale is seeing it, and then Dale sees this. No one else does. Instead of Julie Cruz, he sees the tall guy played by Carol Stroken, the
Yeah.
giant, and he goes, "It is happening again." And that's become kind of a meme of its own. And in other words,
Yeah.
Bob is killing again, fell a victim, and so he and of course Blue Velvet, obviously, the
Mhm.
scene with Dean Stockwell, documented hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he punctuates
The
things.
last Chanteuse you want to see,
Last one, yeah,
unless you're me.
yeah, I'm here for it. What so yes, the music is great. I do remember Silencio. I know that's a favorite of a lot of people who watch the movie. Um, but uh, so what does it all mean? Briggie, what do you have thoughts on this film?
Well, I have several thoughts, but I want to jump off by saying that there was a pretty big star, at least I thought she was, in this movie that people probably don't know, but Ann Miller was in
Yeah,
this movie as
The
well.
landlady. Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought she was an amazing dancer. And I think was she in Easter Parade or something? I know it was one of
She
the
was in
movies
a
where
lot of those.
a lot of yeah, she was a really amazing dancer, but I thought she was pretty her said Cherise, I thought were amazing. And as an aside. So here's what I think. I'm gonna just be like, okay, this is a David Lynch movie, certainly, and it has almost a David Lynch,
go for broke.
lynching Lynchtonian overtones, but at its core for me, this movie was about a woman who came to Hollywood. She was a big fish where she was in a small town and came to Hollywood thinking that she was going to just walk in and they would see her and go, "Oh my God, where have you been? Like we've been looking for you." And then when
Right.
that did not work out the way she wanted it to, she became overly competitive, overly egotistical. I believe she had a very heavy narcissistic tendencies that drove her to not only fall into a fantasy world, but then led her into wanting to kill her rivals.
Do you believe
And
that
Yeah.
the things you're describing that she went through, they're off camera? You're kind of assuming them from when you get into other reality, right? Like this is how
Yeah.
she's
yes,
ended up. And the first time I watched it, this is my friend Art. When we watched it together, he said he thought that the cynical version, Diane Selwyn, was real, and the other one was just totally a dream or an illusion. But
That was my take as well.
that's interesting. You're saying there was actually a transformation. So when she goes into the box, well, it's weird. It's like we go into the box with see her early or later part of her life.
Right.
I still don't know why the old people are in the box. At the end, it's creepy, man.
No, I don't.
They kind of represent. To me, they represent her hopes and dreams.
Oh, okay.
I think.
But these are the same old people that were in the car driving away, where they not the same. Right. So they're driving off into like what would seem to be the sunset. You know, when you're getting older, you're in your golden years, and I don't know if that's the right word, but phrase.
They seem very nice till they're driving off, and they seem a little sinister.
Right. Again, that's sort of wholesomeness and the underlying like darkness, which is so
they're too
much
nice.
about what Lynch is about. And then also when the Naomi Watts character pulls up in front of the Paramount studio, she gets out of the car, and then if you look in the distance, there's the car of oh my goodness, what is her name? From Sunset Boulevard.
Norma Desmond.
Yeah, that's what. It's the real. Okay, and it was the real car that was used in the movie itself.
Right. And to me, that just sort of like that is an actress who, in the movie Sunset Boulevard, her star was fading. She didn't want it to. She thought she was, and she was an amazing star in her time, but she was holding on to her memories, and so here's a Naomi Watts character stepping into Hollywood, and then that befalls so many people who go to Hollywood who try to make it, and then they just basically run out of road. In other words, they just age out because Hollywood is obsessed with youth and the next best thing, whether you are talented or not. Are you perky? Are you available? You know, can you put people in the seats because of the way you giggle or something like this? It's usually through the male gaze, of course, but I see that as a real focal point in the movie. All of the other things, like the homeless person that sort of jumps out, it kind of reminds me of a troll. I don't know. That's what that character reminds me of.
Kirk Aves in the back of the.
I've heard it very much theorized. Yeah, the terrifying thing about her, and at the end of the day, all these characters still with us, Briggie?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you kind of froze up for a second.
Yeah.
But all these characters are really just Diane, or different facets of Diane.
Manifestations.
And, so Dan, the guy who's terrified of the person out back, is Diane. The person out back is Diane. Diane is terrified of looking at herself for what she actually is. She's afraid of seeing who she actually is, and
somebody posted a picture.
She actually did.
Yeah, somebody posted a picture of the old lady behind Winky's, like in makeup, and then they said she doesn't really look like this, and nice lady or something. I forgot her name. It scared the hell out of me because the camera doesn't like linger on her. It gives you enough time to be like, I don't want to see more than a glimpse of that. that dread coming at me. I mean, I really felt dread when that scene, but I really did think that scene was a deliberate, like, off track.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get into Lynch's rhythms. I mean, he pays most things off, but he doesn't do it in the order or time you want him to. He like throws the scene in, and then like 30 minutes later, remember that guy in the diner? He had this certain significance. You got to remember this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
everything comes back up. Just like, you remember that blue key? Here's another blue key. Guess what it means?
Blue.
Right.
So, Justin, how do you feel about the movie? Do you have any particular standout thoughts?
Yeah, look, the first thing that came to mind was that it's and I think Chuck touched on this, it's very similar to Lost Highway, because if you look at Lost Highway, the way I translated that was the Bill Pullman character had murdered his wife. There was a lot of it was captured on videotape, but he constructed this alternative reality, and that was signposted when the younger man character played by Balthazar Getty suddenly appeared in the cell where the saxophonist Bill Pullman's character had been previously.
Yeah,
and then the second half of the film is told through the young male character's life. He's having sex with this woman who's very much a metaphor for the dead wife of Bill Pullman's character. And so my interpretation was a doppelganger. So my interpretation was that it was all too much for Bill Pullman's character. He's had some kind of psychological breakdown or fugue, and he's therefore imagined an alternative reality that was much more palatable to him and lived vicariously through someone else's life.
And I hope I can do that sometime.
And I think that's similar with Betty. Yeah, well, that's right. Well, fortunately, I don't think we've had anything as traumatic as that happen. But I think in Mulholland Drive, the Betty character, she comes across as very innocent ingenue, a very chirpy character, a bit fake in a lot of ways. But she's trying to make it in Hollywood. She's going to stay at her Aunt Ruth's house. She encounters this mysterious, beautiful woman who happens to be in the shower at Aunt Ruth's house, but she's lost her memory. And they play this detective role of trying to work out who Rita's true identity is, and whether she's Diane Selwyn, which in fact turns out to be Betty is actually Diane Selwyn. And so for the last third of the film, we have a completely different reality, a la Lost Highway, where Betty is actually Diane and is a much more, I suppose, narcissistic character and self-aware and narcissistic, but she does have a love relationship with the other character, the brunette, Rita, hence the sex scenes and so forth. But then when she discovers that Rita is actually, or real name Camilla Rhodes, who everyone's looking for, when she's engaged to be married to the director, Justin Theroux's character, and she suddenly realizes that she's just effectively a same-sex attraction on the side, and that Rita's not really that interested in her after all.
She's not the main character anymore.
Yeah, she's not the main character anymore because she's quite self-centered. The real Betty, aka Diane, is quite self-centered. She goes off in a jealous rage and then hires a hitman. And then we loop back to the start of the film where there was the assassination attempt on Camilla Rhodes on Mulholland Drive, which is the centerpiece of the film, as the title suggests. So hence the strong similarity to Lost Highway, albeit, I suppose, a more fully formed version of it, in that someone is perhaps trying to have an alternative reality because the true reality of what happened is too much to cope with, and they've constructed some other reality which the other reality is the first 2/3 of the film, where they're on a friendship level and they're trying to go through this, as you said, Nancy Drew type function of trying to work out exactly what's happened to Rita's character. So it was Lynchian in terms of the random events that are thrown in there, which is tangents to the main plot. The plot with the director Adam, it's not really a central part of the storyline, but it gives him a chance to put in a cameo with Billy Ray Cyrus, who's sleeping with Adam's girlfriend at the time, and the pink paint scene, and he gets beaten up by Billy Ray Cyrus, who seems to be just playing Billy Ray Cyrus as he actually is. So there's not that much acting necessarily going on in those two scenes. You know what I mean?
We call those stunt casting.
Yeah, and as I said before, my favorite scenes probably with the version of the Spanish version of Crying. I think it's called Loreno is the translation, but
something like that.
And then the singer collapses sort of towards the end of the song and has to be carried off the stage. So that happens towards the end of the film. So I suppose there's a few things I didn't completely understand when I watched the film a couple of weeks ago, but my main take, and I haven't read any reviews to assist me either, but I guess my main take is that it's a more developed version of Lost Highway, where there's a character's sort of trying to transform themselves into another alternative reality. because they can't cope with what's actually happened. And I think I agree with Briggie's take that the real Betty, aka Diane Selwyn, is quite self-centered and narcissistic, and they've gone to Hollywood to try and make it there, and it hasn't quite worked out how they would want, including their budding relationship with Camilla Rhodes. And then they've acted out as a result of that, and then she's tried to construct an alternative reality in her own mind, which is what the film takes us through for the first 2/3 of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe not my favorite Lynch film, but it's effective. I think my favorite Lynch film is probably Blue Velvet, but it's still worth it.
Did you also feel that that's his masterpiece?
Well, a lot of people do think it is. It's probably better than Lost Highway, which it's akin to. You could say it is, I suppose, but it's not. As I say, it's not my favorite Lynch film in terms of enjoyment when I watched it. I think that's probably Blue Velvet. Yeah.
Do you think Blue Velvet is his masterpiece? And your favorite?
Yeah, it is. that's what I'd say. It's a bit older. It's 1986, and I think this film was 2001, and I think I did see it actually at the cinema in 2001. But it's such a long time that I had to rewatch it a couple of weeks ago to remember what had happened in it.
I played near my house, but I didn't go.
Yeah, I think Blue Velvet was very mind expanding.
Very
I
what?
thought it was extreme mind expanding.
Oh yeah.
I thought that it was for what was going on at the time in cinema, which was nothing like that. So it really just cut through so much. I thought they were movies that had similar flavors because he was pulling references from the 40s, the 50s, the black and white screen era, and so he had that as a jumping off point, but then he took it to another place, which as an artist and art in and of itself, I think if you're going to reference, you can't reference to the point where it's an exact copy, but you should reference enough to give the audience some kind of anchor and then take it someplace else, as opposed to just doing a Quentin Tarantino like, cut paste. I'm sorry for those who love him. I do too. I love him, but
I did not love him or his work. Go ahead.
No, I do love his work. I love it's interesting, but I know movies too well to understand to know what he's doing, and I understand what he's doing. So to me, in that regard, it lacks of the originality that that Lynch has, because he's not taking any chances. It's already been done, and he's just repackaging and then putting stars that maybe have faded away from view and then bringing them back into prevalence. And I think
except Tarantino stopped consistently doing that, whereas Lynch did not. He did it all the way to The Return. Tarantino, after Jackie Brown, I mean, who did he get as the stars? Brad Pitt. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio. Are these people unknowns from cult movies? No, Jamie Foxx. He wanted the big names. He wanted the money, and he got it. And
well, we're talking about when he was doing what is the one that he did with Travolta. Travolta's star was fading really.
Oh, right, sure.
Right, and that was kind of what relaunched his career. That aside, I would also like to say that since Lost Highway seems a little bit not quite as well developed, like you were saying, it was like this movie, Mulholland Drive, has more meat to it. I understand that this was supposed to be a pilot for a series, so that's why it seems a little bit more cohesive, and it just kind of makes you feel a lot more invested in the characters as opposed to, I would say, Lost Highway.
And you have more characters.
I think also it was quite effective as a bit of an indictment on Hollywood as well, because I think it was mentioned before. It's a commentary on the superficiality and self-centeredness of Hollywood, but also we've got this effectively the mob controlling who's in the movie, and there's a sinister guys in the background saying controlling what the director does and who's in the movie.
Right.
So that's a bit of a commentary on that side, the business side of Hollywood, I think, from Lynch.
and the guy behind all these people was this bizarre criminal who they never developed, who was played by Michael J. Anderson. But
Yeah, yeah.
instead of showing him as a dwarf, as he really is, um, they CGI'd his head onto a normal body inside of this bizarre wheelchair conveyance like Professor Charles Xavier would have, and he's
Yeah.
talking
In like this room
his
nobody
room
else
is
was allowed
fisheye
into.
lens, but they never. I'm like, what happened to that guy? He's the puppet master, the puppet master. Um,
Mm.
yes,
So he was kind of like the Kaiser Soze, the person you never suspect, kind of.
Yeah.
yeah. Lynch does that a lot. Lynch,
But
Yeah.
but yeah, he's also, I don't know, he could almost be, I mean, the very sinister way that Diane Selwyn is thinking of Hollywood, which is also kind of like the way David Lynch thinks of it. But it's just kind of like a way, like she pictures it, like the entire system fucked her over. It's all corrupt. It's all mysterious. And there are all these machinations and these creepy, weird mob guys. And
But Hollywood was,
in reality, you come to the big bitter conclusion. I mean, it's just business as usual.
it's funny.
yeah, but if you look at Hollywood even today, there are people who have been given literal stars on the Walk of Fame who do not, what work have you done? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very inside job.
Yeah,
And
Oh
Lynch
yeah.
is very much outside of the studio system regarding
Yeah.
his vision and the actors that he used. I mean, I believe that Laura Dern would not have, I believe that that was a great pairing
oh
to
yeah.
have Laura Dern, and she was in
She was his
all of his
muse
movies.
beside Kyle.
Oh
Right,
yeah.
It's the two
exactly.
muses.
Yeah.
So he brought out the best in her, in my opinion. He really used her effectively. He wasn't gratuitous with her, and I really believe he was able to get great performances out of her. So Hollywood is not going to respond well to something that is so, I don't know, so cerebral. It's hard for them because what they want is to spoon feed the audience absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
unwilling to
Oh
do
yeah.
The exposition, man, got to be in there telling me what's happening.
right.
The
George has
other
already
thing with
figured
that, like
out.
another filmmaker who pretty much gave the same jaundice kind of eye to Hollywood, of course, was John Cassavetes.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he was
And he had
totally independent.
nonstop stuff to say about it. If you watch you know, which I've covered on this show
Yeah,
before,
yeah,
Killing of a Chinese Bookie. I mean,
great one.
that's his kick in the teeth toward the money men.
Cassavetes
Yeah,
was a lot like John
100%.
Orson Welles, and I guess Lynch was too. You know, and for that matter, if you want to get more esoteric, the fact that Lynch is the American Surrealist, the vibe of his career kind of, in a way, is similar to Louis Buñuel. Louis Buñuel had to keep working outside of different systems. He started making films in Spain, where he's from. Then he had to go to France. Then he had to go to Mexico. Then he had to go to France again. And then he
Yeah.
finally got like these Oscar nominations for movies that nobody has any clue what they're about, which like Secret Charm of the Bourgeoisie is just a fucking masterpiece. But I know he's a big influence on Lynch, and I noticed that the more I saw Buñuel, the more I saw that coming through Lynch. And I mean, it's like a lot of these directors, not just surrealist, but just any more experimental or individualistic, artistic. I feel that way about Pasolini. He uses tons of non trained actors, as well as regular actors. He uses them well. He sets things well within a space. He has no formal film training at all.
Mhm. I think when Lynch uses these actors who are not trained actors, it gives his movies an uneasiness because you could see that they're not
Dick.
trained, and it gives it an edginess, like an itchiness. I don't know exactly how to
Oh,
describe it, but you know what I'm talking about, right? It does give it that because against the trained actors, you could see the difference, and he wants that juxtaposition. That's why he'll put them together, and it gives it a very effective amateur, but not quite but edgy, but not quite. It's all of these dichotomies rolled into one, and then you have the quirky imagination that of his how he visualizes the world that he's creating, and I think that works really well together.
Yeah, he almost kind of creates his own version of an uncanny valley, and that's a phrase that
Yes, that's the word.
gets used
Yes,
a lot. Gets used a lot
yeah,
these days in association with AI, which
Also
yeah,
with anime, that's where
kind
it
of
started.
scares me out.
Yeah, AI. Yeah, I
But
think I
yeah,
think the
just
whole. I think
he
I mean
creates his own. I think
his own
for
reality is what you're saying, right?
his own uncanny valley
Better.
that's not
Um,
like anyone else.
what I would like to say before we wrap up is, Mulholland Drive. I think kind of broke things back open for him as being like the weird or out there director, and but people knew who he was. He got their attention, and he didn't really stoop to shock value to get their attention. Not that he's against shock value, but he did that. But what's funny is 5 years later he gave us. I consider Inland Empire his non Twin Peaks massacre. Oops, his non Twin Peaks masterpiece. His non Twin Peaks massacre. No, I
Fair.
consider Inland Empire to be David Lynch's non Twin Peaks masterpiece. Um, is it my favorite? No, because anything Twin Peaks is going to be my favorite. It's like Bill was saying last time we covered the subject. I can't phrase it as well as him, but he's like the only he's like the only avant-garde or underground or surrealist director who broke through and became famous, like a household name. He actually and did not compromise his work in doing it, and and made enough money and had enough friends and influence to get into things and get things done. And that takes a lot, man. But he had a great personality. He was very gregarious and friendly and warm. And especially near the end of his life, he was very almost childlike. I mean, he was still intellectual, but he was very sentimental. So, okay, well, I guess that wraps it up for our in-depth look at Mulholland Drive, and we hope you enjoyed it. And we are going to probably be back with at least one more Lynch film, and we're going to go deep on it. Before we go, Chuck wants to say something to the audience, and I think his cat wants to join him as well.
So it behooves me to tell you all to like, subscribe. It really helps us with the algorithm. Be sure to click that little bell icon to get all the
Click the bell.
notifications when we drop a video, because we drop lots of videos. And we'll see y'all on High Blue Tomorrows.
On High Blue Tomorrows.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.